Hi there, it's Simone. This is the currently inked that I started out this month. Some of these pens that I have right here were carryovers from 30 Inks 30 Days, and some were new pens, new inks, stuff that came about from September that I wanted to analyze more. So I'm just going to start up here with the pens and tell you how everything went. And then I'll tell you what changed and how all of those things went. So this is the Benu Ambrosia in the brown orchid. I put my medium nib on this when I inked it up in 30 inks, and it was filled with Krishna Chennai, which on this paper here looks very green, but actually it's an amazing ink that lays down in a teal color and then dries green with some amazing sheen. And I think I'm not spoiling here when I say that this is my favorite ink of this year. I then went on the hunt for a dupe, and I think I found one. This is still not completely empty, but I'm just okay with emptying this out because I purchased a bottle of the ink that I will use as a dupe. However, I do want to do an ink exploration of this ink at some point. Somehow I have stopped in my ink exploration journal. That's okay, I will get back to it when I get back to it, but that ink, there is still some left. I will definitely use for one of those. Then this pen was also a carryover from 30 Inks 30 Days. It is the Pilot Custom 823 with a medium nib, and I think I did good on this pen. It's basically empty. There's probably some ink in the feed still, but I consider this empty. The ink that I had in here is Diamine Red Robin, which was from the Inkvent 2021. And as with most of the Inkvent inks that I used in September, this is another one of those inks that I always disregarded when I picked an ink from the Inkvent. But it turned out to be amazing and I really loved it. And that's one of those things that I decided to do in differently this year because I actually pre-ordered an Inkvent. I will basically do the same as I did with 30 Inks 30 Days. The only thing that I'm going to do different is I'm not going to film a video. I'm going to fill a pen with the inks that I open each day and see how that goes. Now, I filled these two pens with KWZ Honey. It's a golden brown ink. The lubricant that KWZ uses is vanilla scented, and I didn't really have a problem when swatching this ink. It didn't smell extremely from the get-go. So on day 30 of 30 Inks 30 Days, I filled this Sailor Pro Gear with a medium fine nib with KWZ Honey, and it was amazing. And since I had a really bad experience with the ink that I had in this Pro Gear Slim Autumn Sky, also with a medium fine nib, I decided to conduct a little experiment where I would ink both of those pens with the same ink color, and you can actually see it here that there is more line variation and more, it's different. There's more shading in the writing of the ProGear compared to the ProGear Slim. What I didn't think would happen is that I actually really was triggered is not the right word. I didn't get a headache. I didn't feel unwell. Just something about the vanilla scent made me not want to use these pens. And so when I journaled with one of them, I think I journaled with both, but after I journaled with one of them, I decided, no, this is not bearable for me. I have to unink those. I did, but I inked this one up right away, but I did not go and ink up this one, because at that point it was already noticeable that I had some back problems that would prevent me from writing as much as I would love to. And so having the same ink in the same pen just wasn't really feasible. Let me check my journal if I can show you some writing samples of those. I think I wrote with all of those pens during that time, and so I can show you. This is the ProGear. Did I write with the ProGear Slim? Yep, and this is the ProGear Slim. It does not seem to be super different on the paper, actually, now that I look at it. So let me see if I can find a sample of writing sample with the, I changed them in the, maybe I didn't even write with the Red Robin. Yeah, right here. Here, I already noticed that it was, sometimes when an ink is in a pen and it's almost empty, it kind of gunks up like this, and that's what it felt like, gooey. And so I decided, okay, this is done, it's empty, and I can just do this, empty it out. And then let's see if I find a Krishna. This is not the Krishna ink. Maybe I didn't write with the Krishna ink. I used it for something, but maybe not in my journal. Right here. I'm so in love, and I will show you the dupe that I think I found, so you can compare it later on. Well, that doesn't help really, because I want to show you the other writing samples. All right, so I inked this up again. I will show you in just a moment, but I'm done with the KWC honey experiment. It showed me that even though I'm not getting a headache or I feel sick with the vanilla scent, it was still so not distracting from the writing experience that I didn't enjoy it and emptied these out. So this one is empty. This one will come back. And then when I started out, originally I had inked up the Namiki Vanishing Point with Troublemaker Hanging Rice, but this is a 14 karat gold nib, and it felt too dry in this nib, and it was super uncomfortable in this pen. So what I did to check if that would actually change something is I swapped out the nib unit. So the Namiki nib unit is now in the Vanishing Point, and the Vanishing Point nib unit is now in the Namiki. It is still not as wet as I had hoped, but it is much better. Maybe because I don't feel, maybe because when the ink is dry, I feel like I have to grip harder to compensate for the dry writing experience. This was much more comfortable because it is a much wider grip section. So what I'm thinking, what might be true is that I don't mind less wet inks if the grip section of the pen is wider. But the smaller the grip section, I need to make sure that the ink that I put in there is wet. And I don't death grip the pen because I feel like there's something wrong with it. I would love to see if putting, so this was Troublemaker Hanging Rice. This is the card for it. I really love these olivey greens. I'm always gravitating towards, this is very similar to Rohrer und Klingner Altgold Grün. This is very similar to Robert Oster Tea Time that I also have a bottle of. So somehow I'm always gravitating towards very similar colors. The next pen and ink, what is here happening here? Oh, this is how it goes. Okay. Was Wearingeul King Lear in the Esterbrook SD Rainforest with a Techo nib. This one is I'm emptying out. It's almost done. It was filled in the beginning of September, so I kept it all the way through the end of October. The interesting thing about this is, first of all, this is usually a shimmer ink. I don't think this is an ink journal ink flight sample. I don't think I got a lot of shimmer in this sample to begin with. And I have not seen any shimmer in the converter, in the writing at all. But every time I wrote with this, it would bleed through the paper, or at least ghost. And that's something that I haven't experienced with any of my pens in recent times. Oh, now you can't see. That's not even the right ink. Haha. Does it show through? No, it was somewhere. I had this really weird writing experience. Well, I guess that's all. Nope. 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 That's September. Haven't really journaled that much in October, which is not here. There we go. Here. Can you see that? I don't know why this happened. I haven't had this with any of the pens. And I think it happened somewhere else. And that was very concerning. So I did not like this, and I also did not gravitate towards this pen more. So that was the color card for this. Then the next combination was Diamine Deep Magenta. I had the Lamy 2000 inked with Califolio and Renople. And yes, these are two different media for showing you the ink color, but this is a little bit more blue purple leaning than the Renople, and for some reason I seem to enjoy this more. So because I said I enjoyed when I did this on day 4, I said yes, it's a nice ink, but I enjoy Deep Magenta more. And just after I said this, I was like, is that even true? And so I decided, well, why don't I just ink up this pen again with Deep Magenta and see how I feel about it. And I love it so much. Another thing that I changed was I swapped out the nib. This is now my nib, but Kristen from Life Inspires Design was so kind as to borrow me her fine nib that she had changed out for an extra fine nib. And so I was able to write with that, and it's so much better than the extra fine. I did a little experiment because, again, I was like, I wrote with it, and like I was so impressed with how this felt compared to how the Renople felt on day 4 of September. And then I started to question myself, wait, what if it's the ink that makes this writing experience so much better? Maybe I should switch back to the extra fine. So that's what this was. And yes, I do like the extra fine with this ink as well, but I really love the fine. And I think because this is such a wet ink, if I love the wet ink in the fine, I will like many other inks in the fine more than when I'm already not very excited about this wet ink in an extra fine nib. So that was amazing. And I don't know, this pen looks so bland in between all of these other pens, but I just really love it and love using it. This is a mistake that I just realized. I had Diamine Ruby Blues in this Esterbrook Estie with the Journaler nib. I enjoyed this so much. I was on my September videos, 30 inks, 30 days videos. When I used this ink, I had it in a Pilot Kakuno with a fine nib. But I already was surprised by how much I really enjoyed this. And I don't remember your name, Scientifically Engineered said, sheening inks do really well in stubby nibs. And I didn't want to go all the way big stub, so I used this smaller excuse. It still isn't. And she said you can often see the underlying color in a sheening ink when you have it in a stub nib. And that is true occasionally. But what I noticed when I did writing samples on this Rhodia paper, that on the Rhodia paper, the sheen isn't as dominant and prevalent as on other papers. And there you can totally see the underlying color. And I really like how this ink, it writes on this paper. So, wow. I loved this as well. I really love, so far this month, I had great experience with writing comfort. So if I am not telling you that it was uncomfortable to write with, besides the fact that I'm always in pain right now, so it doesn't really matter, but there is some pens when I touch them, it like the pain just shoots all the way through my arm, and then others not at all. This one is always one that, especially when I'm not feeling great, it feels like coming home. So this one, well, if I drop them more often than this, then I will have broken pens all over. Of all the pens that I write with, these pens that I used this month were all really comfortable. They were above average comfortable, but this one always stands out as the most comfortable pen in my collection. With one caveat, this one, I don't really know what, I don't even know their names. The people from Walltown Pens do, but this pen is just extremely comfortable. It definitely is up there with the Pilot Custom 823 on the comfort level. So I went out of line, but I just wanted to mention that because that's something that I usually pay so much attention to, and now I didn't really mention it at all. So I wanted to make sure that I said something. Then another carryover is the Sailor Manu Fuji. This one says Fiji, but it's Fuji, in the Benu Euphoria Confetti Milkshake. This one was also a medium nib. I was really very medium-y this month. And even if this one says fine, you can see the line width on this Lamy 2000 is even wider than the medium Pilot Vanishing Point nib. I just really continued to love this light purple. I did not write much with the ruby blues. There is some. Here you can see the base color. It's still very sheen dominant, but so unlike me. I really enjoyed having that. And this one is Manyo Fuji here. And I just, maybe because it was just such a legible chroma shading ink that I'm still super excited about this ink. And then I had another carryover. There's so many carryovers this month. Jacques Urbain Lierre Sauvage in the Walltown Watts with the Sebastian blank from Turin Penco. This is definitely super comfortable. I love writing with it, and I have to say, of all the pens that have no inner caps and are hand turned, this one definitely stays wet, and the color doesn't vary so much from the actual color when you write with it after a while. This one's also going to be cleaned out because it's empty now. Let me see if I can find here. It is a bit darker up here, but then it quickly recovers to its old self. This one was empty super early in the month. It was the Schoen Design Ultem full-size pen with the Monarch medium nib. It was already quite empty, and because this was such a wet writing experience, it didn't take much writing to empty this pen out completely. Diamond Raspberry Rose is a very wet ink, and I really am looking forward to putting a drier ink in this next, to see how I like the writing experience. Because if I'm completely honest, especially when looking at the journaling, this was so extremely wet, like this one. I'm going to talk about that in just a sec. It was, you would write and there would be basically ink laying on top waiting to dry. It was almost too wet, or if I'm honest, it was too wet, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs with a drier ink. And then the last pen and ink combination that I had this month was Diamond Writer's Blood in the Namiki Vanishing Point Hunter Green with a medium nib. As I said before, this is not the nib unit that came in here. It's the gold nib unit, 18K gold nib unit from my Deep Yellow. I liked writing with this. I liked writing with this in the because it was so wet and the smaller section didn't bother me. But again, it was so wet that it just fell on the paper. And I would love to have just a tiny bit more control. So this is something that I want to try out, not in November, but sometime soon, is put Writer's Blood in the 14K unit just to see if it's as wet and the Troublemaker ink was just so dry, or if there is actually a difference in the wetness of the flow of the ink in those pens. But overall, I had such a great month with my pens. These ones are now all empty. This one is empty. Some of them I'm just going to empty out or clean when I'm done filming this video, even though there might be some ink residue, because I'm ready for something new. So during the month of October, I'm going to show you some that I'm not going, definitely not going to go in depth. I then inked up more pens. So I switched out the KWZ Honey for Diamine Brandy Snap. And at first I thought they were very similar. They are, but they're also not. This one leans definitely more orange than this one. This one looks like an ochre. This one is almost a orangey, dark yellow, orange, brown, and put it in here. This ink is definitely not as wet as KWZ Honey, but it's still a nice writing experience. And if I'm completely honest, I can still smell the vanilla. Ugh, it's not as dominant anymore, but oh my gosh, this is still in this pen. How obnoxious. Then because I thought right away that I was going to get a bottle of this ink, I wanted to see how this ink performed in a pen. So I inked up my Euphoria Gold Coast with a medium nib just to see how it would perform in a medium nib, so I could compare it to the medium nib out of this Benu. I chose Benu because I wanted to have a similar flow. Yes, this is a bigger nib, but the wetness factor was definitely very similar and comparable, and the line width is similar. So it is, you don't really see it on the mixed media paper, but on all of my writing papers, it leans a tiny bit more teal or blue than the Chennai. But it's so subtle that I can live with this as my dupe. I think there is a little bit more shading, and it sheens a little bit more in some spots, so it has more depth to the color. But this is definitely also quite amazing, and so I'm really, really happy I found this. I have a video coming sometime before the end of the year where I share all the inks that I found that might be similar, and you can, to Krishna Chennai, you can see for yourself what is there. And then I actually made a really very, well, stupid is a little bit too much. I made a pen purchase that was definitely inspired by my Discord. We went a little bit pen crazy there, and we all bought this pen. The reason why I purchased this is because it has a 21K gold nib. However, it is in the ProGear Slim size, and so it's the same size as the 14K nib on the other ProGear Slim. And so it was a really, really great deal on Amazon. And so I went for it and I purchased it on a whim because I was super curious if it was the same writing experience as the ProGear Slim, or if it was as bouncy as the Sailor ProGear with the 21K nib. And I can already tell you that I was very disappointed because it is basically the same writing experience as the other ProGear Slim that I have. And so now I'm like, do I keep this? Because it is such a pretty pen, and it was so affordable, and it has a 21K gold nib. Or do I look for a ProGear, or even buy this ProGear? This is not my ProGear, because I just love the bounce on this nib so much. So I had hoped for a bouncy nib. And it's a great nib, it's a great writer. I filled it with Waterman Tender Purple. I had recently swatched this ink and fell in love. and I really like how it performs in this pen, so that's amazing. And then I am experimenting with some TWSBI Ecos in extra fine. I put some other nibs on there, Mnemosyne nibs from Birmingham Pen Co. I ordered them there and they finally came. And so I put some document inks to see if I would enjoy the writing experience with other colors than black in my weekly creative journal. But I will report back when I actually have some data to talk about that. I have just started slowly to get back into this. I did put, so the problem is that I actually can't really tell if I enjoy this black ink so much, or if the nib is the amazing thing. Probably would need to empty this out in order to conduct a really good experiment and say, yes, I can live with, wow, oh my gosh. What if the sound quality is totally off now? That would be so bad. Hopefully I can salvage this. I didn't realize that my microphone fell off. What the fuck? So to finalize or finish this, I am not sure if this is a good experiment because it's not the same nib, or if in actuality I would have to empty this out and put these these colored inks into this pen to actually understand if I like this pen and nib with a different color or not. So I will have to consider that option soon. All right. I just wanted to give you one last look at how October turned out. Here is all of the inks that I used this past month. I'm pretty sure that I'm carrying over some of the pens for November, but I'm ready to move on and ink up some new pens. Thank you so much for watching, and let's hope that the audio on this video is good because I do not want to refilm this. If you liked any of these pens, you can now get many of them at Atlas, like this Gold Coast. It's their exclusive pen. It's my favorite Benu. Like the Sailors, like the Estes. You probably can get Vanishing Points and Lamy 2000s. And I have a code with them, which is Simone10. So when you shop next time, remember me and I will see you soon. Bye.